Alright, hit the button. Long video perhaps, regarding 4 people. 3 videos really. Nick, the Modern Mystic, Darwin's Hamster, and Remy. Yeah, Remy. Long time no speak kind of thing. Yeah, he made a thoughtful video. Was not too insulting, so that's good. So first, to be serious, yeah, I've sort of had this conversation with Piro last night in Stickham, and there seems to be this need to change the subject, and that's fine. Change the subject. The problem is you don't want to change the subject. You want to change antinatalism, into, I'm so sick of this nihilistic accusation. But anyway, antinatalism into all these other subjects. You want to convert it and just say, oh, let's not bother with that, let's do this instead. And it's not really an instead thing. No one who is a pro-antinatalist, the whole objective is to reduce suffering. So anything on that road of reducing suffering, we're going to say, yay! So if you can get human beings to cooperate, or care for each other, have a unitarian kind of view of life, and just figure out that, oh, that person needs, I will help them, blah blah blah. Great, fantastic. I'm all for it. I don't think you can do that with anything short of a remanufacture of the human beast, and certainly a completely different social infrastructure that basically raises kids to be that way. So that means you're going to have to change all the television and change all the other instruments of programming in society. So fine. Now I further argue that all of this niceness human stuff requires big brain kind of stuff. You have to have a brain to do the niceness thing. We can sort of see that. It's because the brain has to be really, really dumb not to be a schemer. So if you're retarded enough, you'll be nice because you're not smart enough to be a schemer. You're too innocent. But you lose that innocence pretty quickly. And there's that whole middle place where, yeah, you're just going to be completely occupied with the scheming thing for your individual welfare. And then if you get this little high intelligence thing, you're going to realize, ooh, I can't win a game where there's a loser. If there's one winner and 10 losers, that's a failure. That means 10 people don't feel good and only one person feels good. So that's a stupid equation. Let's come up with some other equation. And I've done metaphors for this, like if you could, thought experiments, you might say, where, it would become quite obvious how inefficient and stupid it is if there was just a slightly different reward payoff. And, if you had a sports team and your best player had to be sacrificed every time you had a victory, you could see that eventually you can't win, because you're going to have to keep sacrificing. You're sacrificing too much. But anyway, I don't want to get into all that. So anyway, like I said, go ahead, talk about whatever you want to talk about, and I'll likely find most of it quite ignorable. But I'm not changing my subjects to suit you. When I talk about virtual reality, I'll talk about virtual reality. When I'm talking about instant runoff voting, I'll talk about instant runoff voting. And when I'm talking about antinatalism, I'll talk about antinatalism. Not, no, let's do something else instead. So anyway, so I'll probably be enough on that. I'm not even going to go into, again, the mischaracterizations of the facts of the circumstance. There's just no point in arguing this crap forever, because it is just that crap. I've committed no crimes against anyone, and so I don't accept the charge. I don't accept the punishment. I don't accept the ridicule. I don't accept any bit of it. So you may have it, chew on it for as long as you like, but I'm going to call bullshit. Anyway, so Nick asked a sort of direct question. I don't get it. And yeah, there's always been this problem, and I really don't, this utilitarian, I don't get it. Remy says, I get it, but I just reject it. Okay. But I just don't get how anybody can't really see it. I didn't know it when I was a kid, but I was sort of getting a taste of it as growing up. I was just getting the idea that, oh yeah, like say if something was going to happen and I knew it would hurt one of my sisters if we did this certain thing, then I would almost vote the other way if I had, when I had a vote. I would say, well, I know my sister really hates that, so I'm going to vote against it. Even though I kind of like to do it, I know she's going to hate it, so the math just doesn't add up. What good is it for me to be happy if she's going to be miserable? And so you start making these trade-offs. You start doing things for somebody, you sacrifice something because you know it'll make somebody else happier than you're going to be doing the other thing. You know, your joyride isn't as important as, you know, their comfort kind of deal. And so I'll use the joyride analogy maybe. But the bottom line is, though, this is something you have to look at as if, I mean, you know, you have to look at it as a disinterested alien kind of thing. So you have to do this brain separation. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. I think we are capable of being Vulcan. We are capable of separating our emotions, our needs, our wants, our desires, our personality from our intelligence. And they can be separate entities. I think your intelligence is that other voice in your head that's just sometimes saying, oh, you're so full of shit, Nick. Or, you know, it's laughing at you when you're doing one of those silly human tricks. So anyway, it can be separated, I think, and do the math. And so we can look at human beings, or the human race, us as individuals, and we could say, let's just call us rats. And let's analyze what these animals are and whether there are significant differences between them. And I think we can pretty much reduce us to, yeah, okay, they're a little bit different. I mean, you know, that one, you know, cleans his face at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that one cleans its face at, you know, 10:30 in the morning. But substantially all the rats are basically the same functionality. 4 little legs, little schemy brain, they like to run the wheel, they like to chase the cheese, blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah, I'm reducing humans to that kind of thing. I'm saying, okay, they're basically just the same format. You know, we have this emotional character, we have some personal sensibilities. Some people like to eat sushi, some people like to eat roast beef, some people like to chew on a carrot. So, yeah, we have little different nuances, but we're all operating on the same software, the same mechanism. We're all internal combustion engines. Yeah, some of us are kind of clunky. Some of us are Maseratis. Maybe that's a good analogy. You know, there's cars that are a little faster than other cars, but they're all cars. It's this basic idea of wheels and the idea of going from point A to point B. And I think that's some of the logical way to look at life, because it is a game. It's this mechanism where there are these interactions, and these interactions will have a net outcome. And the net outcome is yeah, how, you know, how much damage was done to the cars in the race. That's how you're going to judge it. I think it's the only way you can judge it. Well, anyway, so this was all a rat game, a rat maze game that was under your governorship. You were responsible for its function. Well, you'd start to try to figure out, well, what is this stupid game trying to accomplish? And well, what are the constituents of value here? And I think it's just obvious, looking at human beings, the constituents of value are, I feel quite comfortable. Yes, I do. And the opposite, which would be, God, I feel like hell. Save me, God, save me. You know, some kind of bullshit like that. So yeah, that's the constituent. We got this positive sensation and negative sensation. And yes, they can be triggered in different rats by different mechanisms, but the basic sensations, the idea of fear is probably the same for all of us. We just fear different things. Somebody might fear going outside with the wrong color socks on, and somebody else might fear, you know, getting cancer from genetically modified grains, or somebody else might fear, you know, whatever, breaking their leg or whatever, and the other one might fear spiders. But it's basically, again, the same mechanism. So my brain, if I could just kind of pull it off, the good part, the thinky part, and just separate from this individual body, this individual, you know, body it's been scheming for, But that brain would, all it knows is, I be brain, I be smart. What do I do in universe? I do good. What is good? Good is stopping bad. You know, it's the logic, it's going to do the logic. And it's going to know that it doesn't matter which one of the rats is doing the batting. It's just going to be a simple equation that, no, you stop bad. You don't stop bad for Gary Rat. You stop bad for any rat, because the bad is bad. It doesn't matter who is doing the batting. So I've used this analogy a ton of times, but I don't know, it seems to work for me. Yeah, which isn't saying much, I guess. But yeah, if there's a broken leg that has to be experienced, it doesn't really matter who's doing it. I mean, obviously, I guess it'd be best to give it to the person who just doesn't give a rat's ass, the person who's good and drunk. But, you know, I'm just saying, in a slightly more egalitarian, equal starting point, you're just saying it just doesn't matter. You know, if you're going to cripple a kid, it doesn't matter which kid is getting crippled. If you're going to, you know, whatever the thing is. If you just make it more generic, don't call it a broken leg. Just call it a level of unpleasant mental torment. Yeah, what's the difference? Mental torment is mental torment. So again, we're almost back to one of the pyro examples of the Nazi kicking the Jew and hurting his foot. I would argue that if the Nazi doesn't become any smarter for the action, if he's not going to gain any better behavior for his pain, then his pain is a waste. Just like torturing a criminal would be of no value unless we intended to release the criminal into society to be a better person because of the torture. Now, if that's not the end goal, then all we're doing is the eye for an eye thing, which is to resolve the problem of somebody being blinded, we're going to create more blindness. That would be illogical. It would be a waste. It would be stupid beyond its deterrent effect. Obviously, deterrence is a value, so we'll accept sloppiness in the name of deterrence. And so getting to the sloppy argument is almost a good angle, because I've been using this analogy that the life procreation thing, this is probably more to Rami, is not a necessary value. It's not a rescue mission. When people have babies, they're not saving something from horror. They're not saving somebody from burning in a fire. So they really don't have a right to turn on the sirens and fly down the road at 150 miles an hour and take the risk of wiping somebody out who is just minding their own business and doesn't want to have anything to do with your mission, whatever your mission is. And so when you look at natalism, it again, you're not rescuing poor suffering babies or fetuses from some purgatory and bringing them into existence to save them. You're doing something of completely personal value. It has no explicit universal value, where there's no problem assigning universal value to somebody going through, say, the torments of chemotherapy or something. That's just an obvious negative. You can't undo that negative. Whereas the positive of creating a life form really has to be tied to its mission in the world. And if it doesn't have one, it's just a joyride. And you can't, so you can justify collateral damage in the name of saving lives, in the name of rescuing people from fire. But you can't justify any collateral damage for joyrides, for a sightseeing tour. That would be ludicrous to say, yeah, we will accept casualties for a silly trip to the grocery store to get an extra loaf of bread that isn't even needed. Or whatever the analogy would be. We would say, oh, that was dumb. That was not wise. That was not efficient. It was not smart. All right. So yeah, so this is just kind of weird because I don't know. It's sort of hard to understand exactly what needs to be argued. The idea that we have to do a net calculation, like back to the utilitarian argument, that there's a net product to the game. There's a certain amount of collateral damage to play the game, and is that damage acceptable if the game itself is not producing any real value? I made the argument that human beings are basically just mess makers. They make a mess and then reward themselves, pat themselves on the back for cleaning up half of the mess they made. So they're almost like some psychotic who, robs banks and then pretends to apprehend himself and recover the money or something. A fireman who starts fires so he can show up and save the day and be a hero. Human beings, that's what a life basically is. You start the fire the minute you're born, and then you give yourself credit if you've gotten some kind of joy and happiness out of it. But it was satisfying that mission was a necessity of your creation. It wasn't a necessity that existed before your creation. But again, arguing with Nick, I think it's a different argument. It's not just about understanding utilitarianism. It's understanding the fact that there's an intellectual obligation to recognize the context of every life, and the fact that it has a context. It will influence the other living beings, that my brain has no more business being obsessed with my welfare than anybody else's welfare. That theoretically, although I can't do it because I am a selfish asshole, I will try to retain my brain. I'll try to keep my brain inside my head so it takes care of me. But in theory, the intelligence itself should be working in the interest of all sentient creatures, not this one sentient creature. That's illogical for a brain to think it can manage a system or figure out what the right thing to do is if it's completely preoccupied with the welfare of a single piece. So in a game of chess, if you put the mind of the chess player inside one piece and said this piece will survive, you're going to lose the game. That's just it. You're just going to lose the game because you're going to be thinking through that self-interest rather than the net interest. To maximize. How you doing? The objective has got to be maximize the efficiency of the game, the play of the game. Have as few losses and most victories as is possible to achieve within some balanced equation. Darwin's hamster video was, sorry Joe, I really didn't get to yours, but I think his argument's more about the imposition element, the fact that you can't assign the negative to one group, one class of individual, we'll call them losers, and assign the benefits to this class called winners, unless the losers signed a contract saying, yes, I would like to be entered in a lottery where I lose, or I have the option of losing. To me, it's basically theft. They are playing with your money. They'll born you into the world and say, sorry, you lost. You have spina bifida. What the hell is that shit? I didn't even know I entered. Where did I sign a contract for that? I don't think I did. And that's the problem, is that we can't acquire consent to be run over by the fire truck. So even if you were on a rescue mission, I think I'd still have a right to say, I really don't want fire trucks if they're going to run me over. Alright, you can have them, but I don't want any part of your game because I don't want that risk. You want to sign a contract saying you want to play the rickety roller coaster game? Go ahead and play, as long as you're playing with psychologies of your ilk. But as soon as you allow for my ilk to be thrown into the game, then you've committed a trespass. Now you're an imposer, and that's not acceptable. Oh, sorry, long video. Well, a lot of work. I had to use my brain and such. So, till the next time, and whatnot, and so forth. Yep. Oh, the robot's still working. Okay.